billion rand already in the budget to new areas where the money can boost the economy. A noteworthy component is an infrastructure fund to boost labour-intensive investment. Funds will also be directed to agriculture and township and rural economies. To discuss, we're joined by Azar Jammine, Director and Chief Economist at Econometrix. Thank you for being with us.
Pleasure.
Azar, are you sold on the stimulus package?
Theoretically, I think it's sound. The idea of reprioritizing expenditure away from wasteful, irregular and unauthorized spending towards more essential infrastructural investment certainly goes to the heart of one of the big weaknesses of the government's fiscal policy until recently, which was that the government was spending far too much on promoting a bigger public service and paying higher and higher salaries for public servants, and cutting back on vital capital infrastructure in order to meet that.
But those public servants are still there. We still have a huge ministry contingent, I guess you can call it. Some complain about that. So we don't know where the money will come from.
That is the key. Basically, we don't know where the money is going to come from. Ramaphosa himself pledged earlier in the year that he was going to cut down on the size of the cabinet. But clearly for political reasons, we're unlikely to see that until after the April elections next year. That is one element of potential reprioritization.
Does it suggest, if not from the ministries, that then the basic allocations that we've been doing all along have been inefficient?
It suggests that they've discovered a lot of inefficiency, and who knows, a lot of that inefficiency may be derived by attempts at state capture, which the new administration under Ramaphosa are now trying to actually get to grips with. That's the optimistic way of looking at it.
Some people, and I agree, that sometimes as South Africa we try and solve all the problems. The NDP is a big, all-encompassing document. Does this seem like targeted intervention? I mean, things like spectrum that people have been crying out for, maybe picking sort of the low-lying fruits.
I think that's what was attractive about this. There was a lot of sense in those targeted interventions. Spectrum was one, going into township and rural development in agriculture to try and promote labor intensity or more jobs in labor-intensive activities, getting rid of visa restrictions to try and promote foreign tourism, bearing in mind that tourism is one of the huge opportunities in this country and is very labor intensive. Those all made sense. One just asks oneself, well, why didn't we think of this before earlier?
Yeah. And infrastructure, I mean, that goes back to the New Deal, an old plan after the war to rebuild and then create jobs. And we need the roads, and there's sewage gushing into the Vaal Dam. So is this a great opportunity to fix things and also create jobs?
This is a wonderful opportunity to fix things and create jobs when you bear in mind that a lot of the infrastructure we're talking about, building roads and houses and that, do potentially absorb or can potentially absorb a lot of workers. The other thing is that it's absolutely critical that we get going with it, because South Africa's construction industry has suffered a massive decline in the last 2 years, and many of the giant companies that have been at the heart of our ability to build new infrastructure are virtually going bankrupt at the moment. So we do need to resuscitate this as a matter of urgency.
And do you welcome the focus on agriculture? One of the reasons why we went into recession was agriculture declining nearly 30%.
Yes, of course one welcomes focus on agriculture. I think it's one area where South Africa can make huge strides, and especially in labor-intensive activities that can create jobs for those who may not have acquired a very good education and be that employable in other sectors.
Yeah, we hear about black commercial farmers coming in but not being given the support. So this is a focus on support for new entrants.
It's very important that black farmers going into agriculture receive support and skills transfer, and that is why it's also important that this goes hand in hand with sorting out this whole issue of land expropriation without compensation. Because if the government can get the farming community on its side to actually help promote transfer of skills, I think this country can derive huge growth from agriculture and spread the benefits through to the rest of the continent, actually.
There's been an issue of uncertainty and a very fractured relationship between the mining houses and government. Are you disappointed we didn't see the mining charter details?
I did wonder why there were rumours that we were going to get the final mining charter being released today, and we didn't.
Which has been approved, we know.
It's been approved, and one wonders why it wasn't released today as expected. On a more general basis, I think what one is encouraged by with the Ramaphosa regime is they are trying to engage with the business community to a far greater extent than has been the case for a long period of time. What is desperately needed in South Africa is more collaboration between public and private sectors. Whatever the major wealth of skills at the moment reside in the private sector, and unless we can actually get the private sector to come in to help the public sector, we're not going to make too much progress. And I think the Ramaphosa regime is starting to realize this, and some of these recommendations seem to be on the back of some advice that was given to Ramaphosa on Friday by the CEO Initiative group.
All right, thank you very much, Azar Jammine from Econometrix. Like many business people, economists and business groupings welcoming the stimulus package, but of course we'll have to follow how exactly it will be implemented and where that money that is being reprioritized, rechanneled is actually coming from. All right, let's take a look at how the markets performed today.